Mark,
Hello.
welcome to the podcast. So, you've obviously done a lot of your story has been about your situation of how you got to the way you are. Okay, that's obviously what you talk about. And what really impresses me about you is your continued resilience within health and fitness. Because a lot of people in your situation probably wouldn't be training the amount that you do. I see you in the gym most weeks. I see you at jiu-jitsu most weeks. You are, defying a lot of expectations with what you do. So what is it about you that you're so ingrained in health and fitness that the situation you're in, you're just continuing to strive forward with it? Where do we have to go back to?
Probably childhood. I think I've told this story a couple of times, and I won't go into full detail because it would take ages, but basically when I was about 11 or 12, I was quite tubby as a kid. It was around about the time, this is how old I am, when the Sega Mega Drive got released, right? And I all of a sudden went from being outdoors a lot to being indoors playing. And I knew nothing about diet and nutrition. I didn't even care, right? I'm a kid. And I used to eat a lot of junk and crap at school. And then one day I was sat in the cafe at school at the mid-morning break, like the 10:30 break. And I always used to get this rectangular or square cream bun with pink icing on and all the gubbins on it. And I was sat in this booth, and as you sit down, if you've got a button shirt on, sometimes you can see a bit of side boob through the corner, right? And this lad walked past me who I thought was a mate, and he kind of stopped and looked as I was about to stick this bun in my mouth. And he just looked at me and went, "Your body's disgusting."
At 12?
Right, and then,
At 12
and
years
then
old.
just walked off. And I'm like this, halfway about to put this cream slice in my mouth. And I've always been kind of pretty like, bleh, whatever. But for some reason I was like, damn, that was pretty harsh. And so I put this bun down, and we used to have a gym at school which was no bigger than, probably a little bit bigger than this room. And I remember I had a pec deck, 3 weights, a lat pull down, and a treadmill, and that was it. And this is 96, 97, so like no internet really, no education, only what your PE teacher would tell you. That's how you learn about all this stuff. And I went straight to the gym, and I locked the door. No one was ever in there. There were lots of mirrors on the walls. I unbuttoned my shirt, took it off, looked in the mirror, and I was kind of like, it was harsh, but fair. Do you know what I mean? I've let myself go. And even though, it wasn't really my wild health, fitness and all that, I kind of just knew that I needed to do something about it because it was not having a good effect on my life. And so that lunchtime, the same day, I went back to class, came back later on, started just lifting weights. Like, I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
No idea at all.
Just moving it around.
Yeah, just picking stuff up and moving it, just moving my body. And then, I don't know how or why, or no one pushing me or telling me to do it, I just kept going back every lunchtime, doing a little bit more. And that led on to me, basically, I would save a little portion of my dinner money every day, like 25 pence or whatever it was over the course of a week. And then after a couple of weeks, I had enough to go and buy a magazine from a shop. And back then, they were all like bodybuilding magazines. All the guys were just huge. They weren't runners magazines, cyclists, none of that stuff. And I used to buy these magazines and read them cover to cover. And there was one as well called Fighters, which was a martial arts one. And I'd just read them and try and learn. And then when I picked something new up, I'd go to the gym and I'd try the new thing, whatever it was. And I just really enjoyed that part of my day. And I also found that when I went back to school after lunch, rather than be like tired and easily distracted, I was more focused and I enjoyed class more. So I was like, well, this is all good. There's nothing negative. The only negative thing I think was, you'd go back to class smelling a little bit and you're a bit sweaty and all this stuff or whatever.
It's a good trade-off.
Yeah, and then I was just like, I really enjoyed this, and it kind of led into me taking up kickboxing when I was about 14, I think it was.
Was that your idea from like the magazines?
A little bit, and the fact that I was massively into like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Stallone and all that kind of stuff. And down the bottom of town, opposite Toys R Us, they've torn down half those buildings?
Yeah.
Well, the other half, right on the end, before the entrance to the car park, at the top floor used to be a gym called Scorpions. And all day from like 8 in the morning till 8 at night, they'd run all these different martial arts classes. And from like 6 till 7, they did a kickboxing one. Now, I lived in Pennington Quick, so it wasn't that far to walk. And I'd go there and just train and try and learn kickboxing. It was pretty basic. And I I'm not sure why, but I was just naturally quite good at it. I could kick high, I could do the splits naturally, and you know, my fitness wasn't great, but everything just seemed to come natural to me. And I think when things are natural and they come easy to you, you enjoy them more, don't you?
Of course.
And it just became a huge part of my life, and you know, there were no negatives to it. It was all just positive. So I just carried on down that path, and as I grew, I learned more, started implementing more. The internet came around, so I could find out more easily information that I needed, and it's just always been a huge part of my life. And I think that is kind of what led me into the military. That want to see how far I could push this.
Yeah.
You know, and there was nothing back then that I linked to mental strength. It was all physical, because again, I didn't know. I just saw push-ups, pull-ups, running, competing,
Go.
and I never really thought I'm increasing my mental strength while I'm doing this. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm out of my comfort zone constantly. You know, I was competing in martial arts at 14, 15 years old against people that were 30, because I was quite big, and I weighed, I think I was weighing in at like heavyweight or something stupid like that when I was young.
80, 90 kilos, something like that, plus or even more.
Oh, easily over 80 kilos.
Yeah.
I think at my max I peaked out at like 98 or something.
So how long were you did you have that ingrainment of like the chubby kid? Did that quickly leave you when you started training?
I don't think it's ever left me. I don't think it's ever left me, mate.
I feel you, because I had that chubby phase from like 10 to 14, 15. My parents were worried for me. I was like 5'3", like getting on like 70, 75 kilos, you know, going up in shorts, buttons were getting bigger.
Yeah.
It's like he's not growing up, he's growing out.
Right.
And then I had my growth spurt and I went straight up after then getting into a bit of fizz. But I still there's a little bit, I think, of me there. There's like that chubby kid.
But I think what's important, I don't know about you, but for me, it's not negative. So every morning when I get up right now, I put my legs on, put my shorts on, I walk into the bathroom after I've showered and everything, and I'll have like a 5 seconds of accountability. I look at myself in the mirror and I'll be like, okay, cool, you're 40 years old now, Mark, you've got 3 limbs missing, still looking pretty decent. You could tighten this up, tighten that up, but I don't care anymore. I'm not walking down the beach with my shirt off trying to impress anybody now. I'm just doing it for my health.
Yeah.
But there's always in the back of my mind, it's like that, what I just told you about, looking in the mirror as a chubby little kid, feeling sad and down and confused and not knowing what to do about it, and almost stressed about it. Like, well, how do I change this? Now it's just a positive, quick 10 seconds. All right, mate, looking good. Maybe, you know, knock off the biscuits today, go train. And that chubby kid, I don't think ever leaves me, man.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot to be said for like those early years and like kind of how we view ourselves and what impacts us and stuff like that and what we do, because I feel it does stay with us. But again, it's how you kind of you perceive it. You could easily be like, there's some people that are like, I'm always that fat kid, or like some people use it to keep them away from that kind of like lifestyle. So you got into the kickboxing.
Yep.
How did that change your kind of relationship with fitness, and where did that take you?
This was when I think the mental side of things came in, like the mental strength, because like I said, I was a young kid, and when you're young, it's terrifying, right? When you're in school, age is a thing, isn't it? Like if you're 14 years old and a 16-year-old picks on you, everyone's like, oh, he's older than you, he must be stronger. And when I was like 14, 15, I'm competing against like 28, 29, 30-year-olds, and I was terrified, mate. Every time, like I remember that feeling that week running up to the competitions, because I started in tournaments where they were like semi-contact, and I think when I hit 16 they went full contact in a ring without headgear and that kind of stuff, and I was just terrified, like, and the anxiety and the stress and the fear, but I would just somehow for some reason get in and do it anyway, and it was always a strange feeling. Like I always knew I was going to win. I know that sounds arrogant, but it was like, even though I'm shitting my pants and I'm terrified and I'm nervous, especially on the day of it, like I always knew that I'd come out on top. And there was just some weird thing in me that was like, I'm not going to let this person be better than me. Not in an angry way or an aggressive way, just like I need to win this, because I know, I'm confident that I'm capable of doing this. I've trained hard, I've prepped right, I'm good at what I do. Now I just need to show everybody. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but it was just weird. It was almost like a process. The minute you step through those ropes on those mats, it was just like I was going through a process. I knew what the outcome was going to be. There was no tactics in it or anything like that. Like I didn't know how to fight tactically. It was just a survival thing. Like, I'm gonna punch more than this guy's gonna punch. I'll kick more than he kicks. I'll stand up every time he knocks me down, and then when that bell goes at the end, I'll have my hand raised. And it was a weird feeling, but I kept that mentality, and I only ever lost once. I think it was my last fight before I joined the Marines, so I was 16 or 17. I remember it was in Bournemouth, and the guy, I was supposed to fight a guy from London, and he was like 35, I think, and he had been shot in the leg like years before, and we got there on the day and it was all good to go, and he pulled out because his injury was playing up. I think he had nerve damage or something. And so this French dude stepped in. And I'm sat there thinking, remembering all my teammates, right, who were fighting these guys from other countries. I'm like, this is a bit beyond me. Like, I shouldn't be fighting international fights at this age. And it's like, I've had no time to prep for it. And in the end, I was just it was a squash court, it was a changing room. I'm just like, fuck it. Let's see what happens. And this bloke kicked the shit out of me. Like, he knocked me down twice in the first round, I think. It was relentless. He threw me over the top rope. Yeah. And I nearly landed on the judge's table. I knocked him down once, through luck. As he walked towards me, I picked up my foot and what they call teep kicked him in the chest. And he was just off balance. It wasn't that I was strong or anything. And I just remember thinking, all I want to do is survive this fight. I don't care about winning. I'll be proud if I can just survive it. And, mate, it was relentless. He was beating the shit out of me. And I got to the end and I knew I'd lost. But it was bizarre. I went back to the squash court, threw my trophy against the wall, and it just shattered into a million pieces because I was angry that I'd lost. But on the coach ride home, just like really proud that I'd survived. This was a full grown man beating the crap out of a 16-year-old, and I didn't quit. I didn't let him knock me out. I didn't let the referee step in and stop it. I just weathered the storm and weathered it. And as I got older, I realised how important those kind of things are. At the time, I hated it, and I felt bad and terrible, and I had lots of, destructive thoughts about my abilities as a martial artist. But then looking back, you're like, well, actually, that's a hell of a thing to survive as a kid, effectively. So yeah, and then, I had to give it up later, obviously, because you need legs to kickbox. But it taught me a lot. And that's what I love about martial arts.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Everything wrapped around it. It's the discipline, the respect, the honour, living outside your comfort zone, challenging yourself, the cerebral side of it. Now I think, as a fan of mixed martial arts and stuff like that, I see how they strategically fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you've got wrestlers, grapplers, strikers, all thrown in cages competing. You've got to be a lot more cerebral, haven't you? It's not like a kickboxer against a kickboxer. You don't have to be that tactical then, I don't think. So I love the kind of thought you have to put into it as well, and train your brain to be smart, tactical.
Were your parents ever an influence in your health and fitness?
Not massively, no. They weren't really into it. My dad used to have a little multi-gym in his room, and I remember when I was really little, we used to cycle to work. That was about it. I think most of it came from movies, man. Okay. Like looking at Arnie and stuff and be like, I want muscles like that. Do you know what I mean? And the roles that they played, they were like, in my mind, these huge, muscular, strong men. But in the roles they played, they were like the hero. So they weren't going around bullying people or being dictators. They were helping people, saving people, and then riding off into the sunset. And I was like, that's cool. That's kind of what I want to do in my life. And it was impressive too, watching what they could do on screen, like the martial artists, and Jet Li, Bruce Lee, Jean-Claude Van Damme, all these lot. And I just kind of naturally gravitated towards that. I wanted to be like that,
That's cool as well, because you met Arnie the other month, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. After God knows how long of trying. Yeah, we met very briefly because he was in the middle of a workout, but that was kind of cool.
Yeah, like a kind of full circle kind of thing. It started with him watching the movies and you meet him and stuff like that. That's good. Yeah. Did your parents have any thoughts when you got into your training and stuff like that? Were they like supportive in that sense?
Oh,
pushing to do your kickboxing?
Yeah, I mean, that gym that I started at eventually gravitated to what is now, body lines.
Yeah.
So that used to be, as you walked in, if you went to the right, it was the bodybuilding gym, and the left was boxing and kickboxing. And back when I was doing this, Mill Bay was not a nice area. Prostitutes, drugs. So they would
What's changed?
I don't know. I mean, there's some fancy buildings down there now.
Yeah.
So again, at like 14, 15, 16, you know, it's not a place where you could really walk around on your own. So they would drop me off, pick me up, and I was training like 3 or 4 times a week. And then close to, you know, we were talking off camera what your parents live. If you carry on going up Ormrod where the city bus is, there used to be a hut there where they used to do kickboxing. So I'd walk myself there when I was doing extra training for competitions. And they were supportive of it all because it was positive. You know what I mean? It got me off the computer, kept me out of trouble, and it was teaching me things. You know, so you know, martial arts are just, I think they're great for any young man or young woman, you know, that maybe is lacking a little bit of direction.
Because do your kids do any of it as well?
No, but they've all found their thing.
Yeah.
So like Kezia is, since she was 13 actually, she was training in hair and beauty and makeup.
Yeah.
So when she come off of school for summer, Easter, Christmas, she was going to this makeup academy. And she was training and getting certified. And now she's got her own business. She's 19 now and runs her own business, and she's,
that's cool.
You know, completely immersed in that. Mason, my son, I have no clue how this happened, but he just fell in love with football. I don't know anything about football. I don't follow any teams. I've never had any interest in it. I was rubbish at it growing up, but he's like 4 nights a week, full on training. He's at the IFA Academy over in Saltash. She's just fully immersed in that. And Evelyn is more of a creative. So she's just this week landed a role in the school play. They're doing School of Rock. She loves like being in front of cameras and singing and dancing. So I would like them to do a little bit more like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, they did a little bit back in the
world.
day, but you can't force them to do
No,
it. Do you know what I mean?
not
You've got to let them find their own way and then just pour everything into that for them. You know?
Yeah. So when did the Marines come into the picture then? Whose idea was that? Were you thinking of that at that age at 17?
Earlier, 15.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up, where I grew up, all my mates were older than I was. And so when I was coming towards the end of school, they had already all gone and left. And a bunch of them were in the military. So when I was kind of going back and forth thinking what am I going to do when I leave school, I started looking at them and their lives and what they did. And I started looking around because there was a little bit of advice from school back then in like the late 90s, but not that much. And I think when I saw what they were doing and I listened to their stories of, you know, they get to fire these big machine guns and drive tanks and do fitness tests. Right, and then I looked and then I'm watching these movies all the time as well. And I'm like, you know, I think this is something that I could do for a career. And so initially I went to join the army, because I didn't even know who the Marines were. Bizarrely, when they've got their headquarters here, they've got 4-2 Commando here. I just thought if I want to be a soldier and fight, then I'll join the army. So I went down to Mount Wise, around the corner. I got the paperwork, took it home. I was 15 and a half, so my parents had to sign it to start the process. They then told me I had an uncle who was in the Marines who lived halfway between here and Exeter in a place called Buckfastleigh. So I went and saw him. He talked to me about his life and his career. He'd done 22 years in the Marines. So I came back, went back to the career centre, spoke to the Royal Marine, got the paperwork for there, signed it, sent it off, went back to school, finished my exams, did alright. You could only do 10 GCSEs back then, so I managed to get all 10. I got 1A, 2 Bs, some Cs and a D, so could have gone to college or uni maybe if I wanted to, but I didn't.
What would you have done?
No idea. I'm not a very academic person. I still now even struggle to sit down and get into that academic mode. I love reading, but more like entrepreneurial books or biographies, that not, you know, applied nuclear physics or anything like that. It would just break me. So I did okay, but it didn't feel like a natural fit to me. Yeah. And I just wanted to get out in the world and see what I could do physically back then, but then as I grew mentally as well, I wanted to see how far I could push myself to live to my potential. So I ended up finishing up going in the Marines. You've got to do a 3-day course to start with, up at Lympstone, up in Exmouth, called the Potential Royal Marines course. I think it's now
PMC.
I think it's about 2 weeks now. But when I did it was 3 days, and I did it when I was 16.
They do it all with the heart rate monitors now.
Did they?
Making sure people aren't dropping because they had that.
Well, I think that's why they changed it, because there was a massive injury rate. I mean, you got to take, you know, a 16, 17 maybe sometimes slightly older, civilian, and just for 3 days kicked the shit out of them. And it's a lot to go from 0 to 100 mile an hour, and people I think got injured. I think because I was young, I managed to get through it without getting injured. I was quite pliable and resilient, and I managed to pass that on the first time. Came back here to Plymouth with a kit list and a fitness regime to go through, and that was it. That's all I did. I did a little bit of kickboxing, but was conscious I didn't want to get injured, so did it for more fitness than competing. Stuck to the training regime, bought my kit. The internet was a thing now, like 99, 2000, so I started researching military history with the Royal Marines, because that's quite a big thing in there. Some current affairs and that kind of stuff, and that's all I did was just train, learn, and wait for a letter to turn up at my house saying, we want you to come and start training.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Get on the, was it 30 week?
When I did it was 30.
Now it's nearly a year, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah. So I think it went to 32 weeks.
Yeah.
Because during that 10 plus years of Afghanistan and Iraq, lads had to learn new weapon systems because they were coming right out of training, going right on deployments. So they had to learn like the mini-me and underslung grenade launchers and all these things that we didn't get to do when I was going through training. And then what you said, the 3 days evolved into 2 weeks. So I think I'm right in saying now, you turn up and you do this 2 weeks, it's called a recruit orientation phase. And if you fail it, you can go on to do another 2 weeks. But if you fail it twice, you're done. So straight away, that's potentially 4 weeks. Then you roll into 32 weeks of training, if you do that in one hit. Then you've got summer leave, Christmas leave, and Easter leave. So it's probably over a year now, even if you like did it all in one hit. If you fail anything, if you get injured, you could be in there for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, it could be a long entry.
But officer training, back when I did it, was 18 months anyway.
Right.
So that was basically 2 years if you factor in leave, if you do it in one hit. So it's just, it's a long time to keep going and always be tired and sore and wet and cold and just missing out on, you watch some of your mates flying off to Ibiza and chilling out on the hoe, and you're just sat in like Lympstone, ironing, polishing your boots, just trying to stay focused. This is where the mental side of it comes in, just being able to ignore all that trash and garbage and just focus and just keep taking the hits and keep pushing through. Because even when I did it in one go, even that seemed like a lifetime. To just be able to get up every day, do the same shit, not the same shit, but you know what I mean, just like, oh, I'm still here.
Same four walls.
Yeah, and the same people and
same mugs around you,
and just the same goal. Just to be able to keep aiming for that goal for a year or more. It's just hard, man. But I didn't know what I would do if I didn't do that. And again, I don't know. I think I'm quite lucky in the way my mind has been moulded since I was a kid, because almost like clockwork, once or twice a week, I would want to go and quit and put your chit in, put your notice in to leave. And I was able to just somehow mentally take myself off to a corner and imagine being sat on the train, because Lympstone has its own dedicated train station and it's on the bottom field. So you see the troops that are further ahead of you in training, doing the rope climbing, the assault courses, the wars and all that. And I could imagine that train, being sat on it, looking out the window and watching these guys, and then just feeling the train go and start to pull off and instantly feel regret. Even though I'd never been in that situation, I could just vividly imagine it, and I'm like, I don't want to feel like that. And then getting back to Plymouth in like 45 minutes, getting off the train, walking back to my house, because literally my bedroom growing up was 200 metres from the train station. And then going back to my bed, laying on my bed, looking out my window like I did throughout my whole childhood, seeing the train station and feeling like a failure. I couldn't do it, and it just pushed me on all the time, just to keep going. And even if I was injured or I did fail things, I'd just be like, okay, cool, we'll just go again. You know, I couldn't face it.
I wouldn't even say that's luck though. Like that's a part of you that's just, you got that strong, relentless nature just to want to do it. You don't want to let yourself down. You just got a strong visual imagery of yourself. You know, you've got something you want to achieve. You're not a quitter. So you're like, right, I'm gonna go after this. We all have those moments where like, fucking, I don't want to do this. You know, the alarm goes off in the morning. I don't want to get out of bed. But it's like, well, what happens if I don't do it? What happens if I get on that train and go back to Plymouth? What am I doing then? You know, where I could be with the guys, training, working towards something. You actually have a purpose. But when you're telling yourself you go back, it's like, well, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
What's next? You're just like, you'd feel like back to square one. You feel worse than you were then. At least you know you're just going to get battered on bottom field and you go back to do it again.
Yeah.
You know.
And all that shit's just temporary, right? Even if it's a year of your life, it's temporary. You know what I mean? And there's better days ahead, and you get to do more cool stuff, and you've got to have a purpose as well, like you said. And I didn't know any of this back then. Right? I was a kid, like 17, 18. I didn't think, oh, my purpose is to do this. I was just like, I want that green beret because the guys that I've seen are nails and they can do anything, and I want to be like that. And that was what it was to me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, my purpose is to save the world, and no, it's none of that. I just wanted to walk around my chest puffed out with a green beret on my head because I knew that other people knew what it took to achieve that. And so it just drove me on, man, and just pushed me to go out and do whatever was necessary.
Did you get that sense of achievement when you got your beret?
I did, but it was also quite an anticlimax, because you think that when you pass all the tests, you're gonna, you know, this, like, the clouds will part and a ray of sunshine will come down on your head and this green beret will descend from God and place it. And really what happens is this Welsh bloke in the store goes, Mark, and throws it across the desk at you, and you're like, cheers, Taff. And that's it. And then you go back and wet it and shape it, get yourself ready. But, you know, you get it presented officially at the end of the 30 miler, and it does feel great, but you're so exhausted. Like, I was just like gone, and it was kind of the moment doesn't pass you by, but it's difficult to fully appreciate it because you're so tired. I think when you get back, you appreciate it more. You know, but it's 100% worth it.
Yeah.
100% worth going through all that shit, because no one can take that away from you. I can now, for the rest of my life, say at 18 years old, I was a Royal Marines Commando, and I've still got my beret that I was issued in training at home. No one can ever take that away. But at the same time, you can't ever just sit on and rest on your laurels on that for the rest of your life. That's like one chapter, and it's done. Now what's the next thing? Then what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? And I just actually finished reading my friend's book last night. Do you know Staz from Through Dark?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah,
so Staz was a Royal Marine. He did a few episodes of SAS Who Dares Wins. Yeah. He co-founded this tactical clothing brand, Through Dark, with another Special Forces guy. They both were in Special Forces, and his book, all the way through, it's like he got the God, I hope I get this right, the conspicuous gallantry cross, which is one underneath a Victoria Cross for gallantry and bravery. And in the world he operates in, that's insane, you know, in the Special Forces world. But he always talks about, I got it was great for the minute, and then I put that in mentally in a box, and then was like, cool, that's a standard operator now, but I'm not going to live on that forever. Move on to the next thing. Move on to the next thing. And when I was reading that last night, I was like, that's like how my mind works. It's like, I've got this, cool, box it, move on, what's the next thing? That's your new standard, your new baseline now to operate from. And you achieve something else, that's your new baseline. You achieve something else, that's your new baseline. You never sit there just living on it for too long. You just move on and go on to the next thing. So that's what I kind of did with the military as well. You've achieved it, but you can't go on for the rest of your life going, you know, like Uncle Albert, during the war. It's like, no, I've done that now, move on. What's the next challenge? And that's why I'm just constantly trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So obviously I can imagine the first period in the military, it's all structured for you. They're telling you what to do, you know, they point, you go. You probably don't get much of your own say in a lot of things, I can imagine, especially maybe within your own fitness routine that they want you to do these running, these classes and these structured training. Did it get to a point within your time in the military that you got to bring back in potentially bits of martial arts, your kickboxing, your training?
All the time.
Yeah?
All the time. There is things you've got to do, and it differs from unit to unit, but you generally start each day off with what they call troop phys, and it might be some run or, back in the day they called it circuit training, right? Like some sort of CrossFit workout. Sometimes you'll be in like periods of military training, so you'll be on Dartmoor yomping for a couple of hours, and they'll always do that military fitness because you've got to be that way inclined. But then in the evenings you can go off and lift weights or do martial arts or that kind of stuff, whatever you want. And I did. I kept it up. I kept up the Thai boxing, the kickboxing. I boxed for the Marines for a little bit because I thought it came up on orders like they want people to box for the military. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. Be like maybe an hour and a half of training in the morning, and like have the rest of the day off. 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, 8 weeks solid of training, and then we got to box in what they call the core championships. I was a heavyweight, and I lost a heavyweight final by 1 point. I was so devastated. It's like the one thing that irritates me in my whole career, and it's a bit cheesy, but I always look back at that and think, it's 1 point, right? So effectively, if I'd landed a jab, it would have been a draw. 2 jabs, I would have won, right? And as a metaphor, I always think, and the reason I didn't throw any more jabs than I could have is because I was done. Like my arms couldn't move; they were so exhausted. But I always think that's the difference now between success and failure. Is just throwing 1 or 2 more jabs. And now I'll always have to sit there looking at that tankard that says heavyweight runner up, and I'm like, ah! But the good side of it is, if I'd have won the Royal Marines Corps Championships, then I would have had to go on to box for the Navy, and I didn't enjoy it. Like I said, that constant feeling of anxiety and stress, and having to fight another human, I don't enjoy that feeling. And I didn't like boxing anyway because I found it quite restrictive. You got a guy in the corner, and when you're boxing, and I just want to grab him and knee him or kick him, and you can't. You have to constantly hold yourself back. And I was like, well, I'm a bit disappointed, but actually a little bit relieved. And I'll like I say, draw a line under that, move on, and then go on to the next thing.
Where do you reckon the anxiety and stress came from all that? Just pressure from competing?
Well, hey, you're going to be punched in the face by another human being. It's like, I don't think anyone that's ever stepped through the ropes will deny that they felt that. It's why I watch like things like the UFC now, and I just got so much respect for them men that they do that as a career. And I know they get paid okay. It's not brilliant, but they get paid okay. But to live that way, the training's great. Like when we do jits, right, it's a lot of fun. But the minute you go out and you compete, like, do you still get anxiety?
It's getting better. It's getting better. I feel like I can channel it well. Before it used to be like, I remember my first match. My missus was saying to me, like, I looked like I went white, and I just grabbed this guy. We got on the floor, and I'm like,
everything goes right.
I was like, I felt like I was just underwater. Grabbed this guy, but it's got better. It's gradually got better. As I'm getting better and more confident in myself, and I'm more comfortable with losses as well. Even though obviously the goal is always to win, but I am more comfortable with myself as a loss. But I remember the first one, I was like underwater. But I mean, the pressure of like a UFC one, where that is your sole career and job. Your family and your teammates are relying on that. You've got to get the paycheck in. You're in front of tens of thousands in the room, and then millions around the world. That's got to be a big thing. Yeah, and you can't focus on anything else. Like I remember, and I was lucky, right? Because I was young. All I had to do was school, and that. I didn't have a job. I didn't have to pay bills. But as you get older, like when you compete, you have to focus on it, like fully. You know what I mean? You can't be like running off, going partying, or worrying about the kids and things that are going on at school, or paying your bills, because it distracts you. And if you want to go in and be the best, and so, they probably got even more like stress, and you've got to get good people around you to kind of manage all that stuff. But I couldn't do that as a job. Don't get me wrong, I love everything else around it, like the popularity and the kudos and the training and all the fun stuff. But to step in there, like as a job, and have so much on the line, I couldn't do it. No way. It is a tough thing. It does. I mean, they've all got something going on. You look at every top fighter in the world. No one's a straight line. Everyone's a bit like kooky, but I think you've got to have something about you just to like be like, right, I'm doing this. Yeah. They dedicate it early on. So what do you reckon when you look at yourself in like the Marines and stuff like that, what were you good at? What were your strengths within your fizz? What was your A game? I'll tell you what I was terrible at. What was you terrible at? Running. Okay. Like, you have to be fit to be a Royal Marine, right? And I would say that my fitness in terms of running was just about hitting the standard. If there were a bunch of us out on a run, you can guarantee I'll be one of the last 5 in. But where I shone, I think, was like through training when you're doing that stuff.
I'll be the guy that's throwing up on himself. I've got snot coming out of my nose, breathing like terrible, but I'll keep going. And I remember again another thing that would always run through my head when I was completely broken, and back then as well, right? You didn't know anything about running gait or breathing techniques, which stuff that would be so useful now. I didn't know any of that. No one really talked about any of that stuff. But you would just go through determination and brute force. And I just remember when I was in the most amounts of pain thinking, I never want to do this again. So I'm just going to thrash myself now. Otherwise, in 2 weeks' time, when I'll get put back 2 weeks and I have to do this again. And then you've got 2 weeks of mentally building yourself up to feel like shit again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, never. I'm not a chance. I will, unless my body just goes bleh and shuts down, I will not stop. And that was my strength, was just that stupidity to just keep going. I remember watching when they put these programs on TV, right, of people going through recruit training. I remember this one guy, I was watching it with my wife, and there's this part at Limpston, they call it Heartbreak Lane, right? And there's a sign that says 500 metres to go, it's only pain. And it's iconic. And I remember watching this guy running there, and he had shin splints, I think, and he might have had a fracture, and all that's quite common. And he fell over, and he was like white, and he was maybe 200 metres from the end. And I remember watching this on TV. And I mean this, and this is what I would have done. I remember watching this and thinking to myself, I would roll. I would have rolled that 200 metres until I hit that finish line. I wouldn't have stopped. Or I would have crawled on my elbows until they were bleeding. Because I would never want to do that again. And this dude kind of quit and got in the vehicle and then had to go back and do it again. And I'm like, why did you stop there? You've done 98% of it. Just keep rolling. Roll until you get over the finish line. You're still there. And that's kind of like my mindset with stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Well, going back to that visual imagery that you said you had when things were getting shit and you felt like quitting, it's just like, well, what happens if I fucking stop this now?
Yeah, like you got shin splints, right? Or maybe fractures. So it's painful. Maybe your body just goes no and your legs stop. But you can still roll. Right? And I know I might sound like a dick to some people listening to this, but that's exactly what I would have done. Or crawled on my elbows.
Did
or
you
something.
see the guy in the London Marathon?
No.
So there's a guy, there was a kilometre out from the finish, there was a drink station. He goes along, grabs his drink, someone next to him has their drink, throws it, he slips on it. I think he broke something in his leg, he broke tib fib or something like that. So he broke his leg 800 metres out, bum shuffled the whole way, and then as soon as he crossed the line they got him on a stretcher.
Yeah,
he's done
exactly.
99% of it.
That's my point. Like, why would you just go bleh at the end and quit? And that's just, I think, what a lot of life is. Like, forget fitness and all that. Like, it's whether you're, trying to get promoted at work or, earn a certain amount of money or whatever it is you're doing. Like, that's the point where people just go, oh, it's too hard. And then other people go, nah, fuck this. I'll crawl, I'll roll, whatever it is, just to get that last little bit over the line. And I don't even know where to say that it came from or comes from. For me, it's just like a natural way to think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I wish I could teach it to people. I'd make a fortune, but it's just, I don't know, just a series of events, I guess, growing up, people I was around, things I saw, content I consumed, whatever it was, just created this mindset around me.
Just the discipline. Me and a guy were talking about, can we bottle up discipline and sell it?
Yeah.
Liquid discipline.
This is what you said just now, right, about, sometimes the alarm goes off and you don't want to get up. Like, I get up at 5:15 every day and I'm in a warm, dry house, right? And I've got my little coffee pot set up under the table and I've got my little routine set up on my bed. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand, honestly, and I mean this with respect, I don't understand how people struggle, like healthy people, right? Not people that have got illnesses or whatever, but how healthy people hear the alarm go off and struggle when they're warm, they're dry, they're comfortable. It just takes a bit of discipline.
Too comfortable.
Yeah, maybe it is, I don't know, but like...
Have we got too many creature comforts around us, like, that's just keeping us in that bubble, but it's too nice in this bed, in my million springs.
I know, but I can't... I find it dangerous. I think to myself, if I ever get that way, it's dangerous that you let your guard down and... I want to say become soft, but I know people might get upset about that.
But I mean, I think some people do become soft.
Yeah, and drop my standards. I hold myself to a certain standard, and I don't think it's that high of a standard to be able to get up when your alarm clock goes off, or not eat ice cream every night or whatever it is. It's just a little bit of discipline, like you said, and it's not that hard. And then, like if I start competing again now in jiu-jitsu, then I'll take it to another level, right? Then there'll be things that I'll just cut out of my life, like snack foods, and I'll make sure that I'm disciplined.
There's biscuits.
Yeah, I love biscuits, man. But I'll make sure that I'm disciplined in certain things. And when you do that, I'm not saying live like a monk, right? But when you do that, like in my house, we have Fat Boy Friday or Sumo Saturday. So we'll eat decent throughout the week, and I don't make my kids eat salads every night, or don't let them have Burger King every night. But then come Friday or Saturday, whichever one we choose, we'll have a treat. And it's so much better when you're anticipating it and looking forward to it, and it's a reward, rather than just doing it every night.
You're appreciating it. It's not just a thing that's there all the time.
Like, I'm excited for tonight.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be able to go and get a Burger King or a McDonald's or a Domino's, whatever it is, because I've earned it by just working every day of this week. You know what I mean? So it's just the way I live. It's not for everyone, and I don't think I'm ultra disciplined. I've been and can be a lot more disciplined than I am now, but I would need a specific target that I'm aiming for. Right now, I'm just in maintenance mode, just chilling
until the comps start coming in.
Yeah, and funnily enough, one of the lads I've got a para jiu-jitsu WhatsApp group I'm in for some of the other Inji guys, and one of the guys last night just put a link up to Abu Dhabi, the para championships.
Yeah. You did that one before, didn't you?
No, I was going
to. You did one out that way, didn't you?
No, I was going to go to Abu Dhabi.
No, there wasn't. Yeah, I remember you telling me.
Yeah, but I had so much work on.
Yeah.
And again, I need, like I said earlier with the fighters, you need to just focus on. If I'm going to go to Abu Dhabi to compete in the World Para Jiu-Jitsu Championships, I want to win. So I'm not going to be focused about, going off and doing presenting jobs or speaking jobs, or whatever it is, or TV work, when I need to be focused 100% on not just training, but recovery, nutrition, all that other stuff. Because I want to win. I'm not going to go fly to the other side of the world with the mindset of, I'll just see how I do. Now, other comps, maybe I would. If it was the Devon Open, Somerset Open, something local, I'd be like, all right, cool. I'll train and I'll put a routine in place. I'll go see how I do, and then we'll work on back from there. But this is the World Championships. I'm not going to go there half cocked to be like, I'll see how I do. I want to win it, and then I'll never do it again probably because I'll focus on other things. But we'll see.
So it's evident that the discipline and the visual imagery, and you just have this kind of drive for yourself going forward, is kind of naturally there. Now, obviously, there was a point in life where things massively changed, which is obviously what a lot of people kind of know you for. But what was that like? Did you see any kind of waver in your ability just to still be like, no, I need to keep pushing forward with it?
So the first couple of weeks, and I'll be honest, you wake up, I was 6'2", just under 16 stone, I think, running around Afghanistan, super fit, doing a job that I loved, and then you wake up in hospital, 3 limbs missing. I think I'm about 3 foot tall now without my legs on, and at the time I was under 9 stone in weight. Obviously I lost 3 limbs, but I was fighting off infections and all that lot. So I'm not going to say I woke up and went, all right, cool, what's next? There were some shit fucking times in those first couple of weeks, but I talked about this earlier about standards, right, that I set for myself. I got a visit when I was in hospital, and it was from the Commandant General, who's the highest ranking guy in the Royal Marines, and what we call the Core RSM, so the highest ranking enlisted guys. So, you got an officer and an enlisted guy, the 2 highest ranking. They came and visited me, and it just reminded me of, in my mind, it took me back to when I was a kid training for the Marines, and all the things that being a Royal Marine meant to me. And after that visit, I kind of went back to that mindset of remembering how motivated I was to be a Royal Marine and what it meant to me. And then I kind of started reliving that in my head in hospital. And I'm like, all right, cool. I can't physically do what I did because I've got no legs and 1 arm. But mentally, fortunately for me, I'm still 100%. I had no traumatic brain injuries or any of that kind of stuff. And I was still fully with it. So I thought, well, I'm still mentally a Royal Marine. I can still live to those standards. And so I did about 6 weeks in hospital, and I had a visit from a guy who was missing both legs, and that kind of motivated me a bit because I saw it was possible to get up and get walking. And then while I was in hospital, I got a computer, a laptop brought in my room, hooked up to the internet and started looking for a triple amputee. And I was trying to find somebody who had overcome their injuries and was out there living the way that, in my mind, I wanted to be living. I had no clue what was possible that early in my recovery, but in my mind, I imagined myself doing exactly what I'm doing now, walking around with prosthetics, no one helping me, no wheelchairs, driving, training, doing all this stuff. And I found this guy. I started watching his videos and listening to what he was saying, trying to get into his head and understand the way he approached life as a triple amputee. And then in the end, when I got to rehab, it was difficult because I was the first triple amputee and no one knew what to do with me. And I was seeing this guy going out doing these things, and I was feeding it back to my team. And they, with respect, weren't interested. I think they were trying to protect me from setting my expectations too high.
Yeah.
But I was seeing what this dude was doing, and I was like, well, if he can do that, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Well, I just need to figure out what he did mentally and physically, and I'll be able to do it. So anyway, the short version is I contacted this guy, I contacted this team in America. They started helping me. I asked my team if I could go out to America and meet him and learn from him, and then I could bring back those lessons and then start helping other people in rehab. The MOD said no, which I'm not going to say it pissed me. Well, it did piss me off. But as a soldier, you do what you're told. And I spent
So you're still enlisted at this point?
Yeah, I was going through rehab.
Yeah.
And I was coming home to Plymouth for periods of time to rest and recover, and having a lot of conversations with my wife, because I really wanted to go out, but I was getting told I couldn't. And we had a lot of conversations over the space of about 2 weeks, and in the end, I just decided, even though I shouldn't, I decided to go against what the MOD were telling me, and I went AWOL and just booked a plane ticket, flew out to America, and thought I'd deal with the consequences when I come back. Went out to meet Cameron and his team, spent 3 weeks out there, and I'm not joking. To me, it was very similar to going through Royal Marines training. So what I mean by that is, when I was in the Marines, I went from a civilian to a Royal Marine in what is relatively a short space of time. And then in this context, I went from being a wheelchair user who put his legs on for maybe an hour a day to literally flying to America. I wasn't allowed to take a wheelchair. Wasn't allowed to take anyone with me. I had to go on my own. So I went from being a wheelchair user with people helping me, with a safety blanket in my wheelchair, to going to America with none of it. And it was literally like going through training again. It was just painful and tiring and exhausting, and I was sore and just broken the whole time, and I had no choice but to get up every day and keep putting my legs on, no matter how blistered or sore my legs were, on my arm or any of that stuff, and forcing myself to walk, because I had no choice. You know what I mean? I was 3 weeks in America on my own with this team that were training me. I had no choice, and I didn't want to let them down, because they'd given up their time and everything they'd learned about living as a triple amputee to help me. I had my family back at home that in my mind were relying on me, because when did I go out? 2009. So my two little kids weren't born. My eldest daughter was around. So in my mind I thought, well, I've got to be able to be independent, to be a father, and to do the school runs and to go on the trips and the Christmas plays and all this kind of stuff. And it was brutal, mate. It was absolutely brutal, like what I had to go through to be able to leave my wheelchair behind and live independently. And again, I mean this with respect. Everyone is on their own individual journey when you go through this kind of stuff, but there aren't many other people that were willing to go through it, because it sucks, man. It's like these sockets on my legs, when you're doing it in the beginning, it is unbelievably painful. Like, imagine, what size foot are you?
11.
So imagine wearing a size 9, but not a trainer. You know them little wooden shoes, what they wear? Like clogs?
Yeah.
Imagine wearing them, right?
Yeah.
Every day of your life, doing PT that's what it feels like when you first start walking. You're just crushed and sore, and you bleed, and you're covered in blisters, and then you've got to get up the next day and put them back on. You want to get in a wheelchair, you want to take the pressure off your lower back and all this kind of stuff, but you can't. And you just got to force yourself physically and mentally. And then every day it gets a little bit easier, and a little bit easier. And I remember the very last day of this 3 weeks, we were in Texas. We'd gone from Oklahoma to Texas, and we had been at this place called Six Flags, which is like an amusement park,
Yeah.
and we'd been riding roller coasters all day. It was 109 degrees, right? And I was walking around all day, and it takes me 300 to 500% more energy to walk around. So imagine like fast jogging all day for 8 hours around an amusement park. And on the way back to the car, like every step I took was like I was like dragging my legs, dragging them, and I was like falling asleep while I was walking. And inside, I got to that point mentally. You know when you're either gonna lose your shit and just like go crazy on someone, or you're gonna cry. That's where I was at, and I was edging more towards crying. I was in so much pain, and I was so tired. And like.
Breaking point.
And it was like the 30 miler I told you about. That's how I imagined it in my mind. And I saw the car in the distance, and I just keep walking by.
That's the green berry.
It was, mate. It was. And this was 3 weeks of intense training, right? And I got to the end, and I sat in the car, and I don't remember much. I just like passed out of exhaustion, and then woke up a couple of hours later back in Oklahoma, just like, oh God, thank you, it's over. Just so pleased I'd done that 3 weeks. And then when I came back, the responsibility then was on me, because no one was watching, no one was pushing me, and I could have just got back in the wheelchair. No one would have known about it, right? I ended up having to give. I had an electric wheelchair and a manual wheelchair. I ended up having to give them away to stop the temptation. But then when you come back, obviously life's not so intense, right? It's like leaving training in the military. It's intense. You go to a unit and it's a bit more chilled. That's what life was like then. You came back, it's a little bit more chilled. So maybe I don't have to be out at 7, 8 o'clock at night with my legs on. Maybe I can take them off at 5 and recover a bit more. And so that's what I started doing, just being sensible with it. And, you know, I came back from America on the 9th of June 2009, and I haven't used a wheelchair since. And, you know, it gets easier with time.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely manageable. But, you know, when I was in hospital, I was told, you've got 0 chance of ever being independent, because...
They're so optimistic, aren't they?
Do you know what? I think there's a part of me where they want to set expectations and protect you. Because and this is interesting, right?
Or protect them as well.
Yeah, but they explained to me this thing called post-traumatic euphoria, which is when you come out of a traumatic accident or incident, and you're in hospital and you speak to your nurses and you're like, right, I'm going to climb Everest backwards naked on one hand, and they're like, yeah, okay, mate, okay. Because you just want to wake up and then the reality of your situation hits you. And that's when a lot of people get depressed and get down, and they realise that just going to the toilet is like a mammoth task. Yeah. And I think they were trying to protect me back in the day. But the minute I saw other people doing stuff, I'm like, okay, cool, why can't I do that then? All you've literally got to do is get them to mentor you. And, you know, you ask them, like, what when you're tired or you don't want to put your legs on, what goes through your mind? How do you overcome it? Okay, cool, all right, I'll start trying that then. And you figure stuff out for yourself and develop, like jits. You know, you get told how you're supposed to do it, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll do that. And then over time, you're like, oh, you know, I'm quite flexible. I could probably do this with my legs, or I'm not flexible. I can't do that, but I'll adjust and go this way. Same with this. I was just like, okay, cool. I'll take everything everyone's teaching me, and I'll create my own way of doing it, which is easiest for me. You know, and that's what got me here. It's just that relentless kind of pursuit of more, understanding what I know that I'm capable of, taking all the things that people can teach me and just adjust them slightly to suit me, to make my life flow the easiest.
Well, not only have you got back to being independent and walking, but you're back gym training. You do jiu-jitsu. You do your sea swimming. You got a record for that as well, haven't you?
Yes, well, record.
Your kind of bike thing that you
hand cycling.
Yes, hand cycling. What else do you do? Is that ticking all the boxes there?
I've done rowing before.
Rowing.
It's probably a little bit of, you know, hiking and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
major.
You've gone past what? Again, they didn't think you'd walk. And you're back training. You're doing all these things. Were you ever thinking about that?
From the minute I woke up, I was thinking about that. Yeah. But then you go through this journey of being told it's not possible, trying stuff, understanding what is and what isn't possible, adjusting stuff. So like with weight training. So my friend used to own what is now Jackson's gym behind where we train. And he used to give me a key. So I could go in at 5 a.m. when no one was around and play around It took me about 6 months because what I didn't want to do was go to the gym when it's busy, and when I get in, sit on the pec deck, to get up for me was a pain in the ass. So when I'm sat in the machine, I want to stay there till I've done my 3-4 sets, right? Yeah. But I didn't want to inconvenience other gym users. So I'd go in at 5 in the morning, I'd take my arm, my hook, my clamps, my attachments, the stuff you see me train with now, like the daisy chain and the towel for increased grip and that kind of stuff. And I just play around. And after about 6 months, I figured out various routines where, through a combination of machines and free weights, so when I travel I'm not restricted, I could figure out some basic way to work out. And now I've just got those routines and those exercises like locked into my mind. So wherever I go now, I know at the very least I can pick up some free weights, even without an arm on, even without my legs on, and do some sort of exercise to give me that blast that I need and want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a journey, man, of just figuring stuff out. And Bruce Lee said it: take what's useful, discard what isn't, make it uniquely your own. I do that in everything now, even jits.
Yeah, it's got to be.
You know
the jits is a fun game.
Oh, I love it, mate. I love it. It's just, I think I just do everything opposite to what they teach you in jiu-jitsu because it just doesn't work for me. Yeah. I understand the concepts, and I understand why they teach everything they're teaching, but a lot of it doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? So I just figure out, how can I take that concept you're trying to teach, but apply it to my situation so that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It just looks different.
Well, I mean, our role the other day, we found another way to armbar.
Yeah.
Little things like that that just come out of how you're using your body differently. It's like you're not throwing your hooks in, wrapping legs around anything.
Yeah, I can't do that.
So different how you're doing it. But there's things you can do that we can't do.
But there's
how you're doing it.
Right, and there's the other thing, right? It's like, where are the advantages in my perceived disadvantages? So with jits, I trained with a guy yesterday. It was his first or second session, and he's like, he said that to me. He went, I've only done this like once or twice. And everything I've learned in those 2 sessions is to grab this and grab that, but you've got nothing to grab. I'm like, haha, that's my advantage, right? All I've got to do is protect my neck and hide this arm, and then people are pretty screwed.
Yeah.
But my disadvantages are against able-bodied people. I'll gas out quicker. I've got to be more boring and defensive and tactical with it. But I figure out what works for me, and that was you said about swimming. That was what I did with the swimming. When I contacted Guinness, they said there are no disabled world records. You have to compete against able-bodied people. So I thought, okay, where is my situation and advantage? Is it likely that someone somewhere has chained their ankles together, tied an arm behind their back, and swam a kilometre in the ocean? Probably not. So I looked into it. There was a guy who actually chained his ankles together in Portugal, but swam with both arms.
Okay.
But I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't have both arms. So I found a record which didn't exist, which no one had tried, which would be very difficult for an able-bodied person to actually do. Do you know what I mean? It would take a lot of training for somebody to go out there and do that, and I don't think many people in the world would commit to it. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do that. And there was no record. I could have took 3 days to do that swim if I wanted to, and I still would have got it. I think we did it in 32 minutes in the end.
So what's the title of the record?
I don't know. It's quite long. Fastest person to swim 1 kilometre open water in the sea using just one arm, something like that.
Okay.
So you could do it, but again, you have to chain your ankles together, tie an arm behind your back.
Dead weight, like hanging off me and stuff like that.
Yeah. For you it's dead weight, but I don't have the dead weight.
Yeah.
Do you know? Again, it's my advantage to most people's perceived disadvantage. They think, you've got this disadvantage. Not to me, it's not, because I can bag world records. I've got another one now they've just approved about pulling a truck.
Okay.
And then I've applied for another one to be the shortest person in the world to deadlift double his body weight. So with my little legs, I'm about 3'5" tall. So I'm going to try and be the shortest person in the world ever to deadlift double my body weight, which is 120. I'm 63k without my limbs on, so 126 kilo.
Yeah.
I've PB'd at 128 before, so I've already done it. It's take a bit of training to get back to it, but I'm waiting for him to come back and see if that record exists. Well, if it does, what it is. If it doesn't, perfect. Do you know what I mean? And I'll bag another one. And then I'll bag another one, and then I'll bag another one, just because I'm going to take my disadvantage and use it to my advantage.
100%.
So why not? Why not?
I think that's impressive. So when did the social media come into it? Like you started, obviously, I can't imagine you're there taking selfies when you're in the military. When did that all start?
Do you know what? I was having this conversation yesterday with my wife. Like when we met, she was on MySpace in 2006. And I was like, what is this garbage? Like, what are you doing posting pictures of yourself and talking to strangers on a computer? Why are you not out meeting real people? And now I've got like 16 social media accounts. It's just crazy. But I've been on social media for about 15 years. But the thing is, in the military, it's a strange environment. Not in a bad way. You just do things and you move on. You don't like tell people about it. You don't post about it, brag about it. So it took me a long time to get my mindset around, actually that's okay. You know, that's your old life. Don't worry about... Because the lads will give you a load of shit, right? Like, Nobber, look what you done. Think you're special.
Post a photo.
Yeah, just not in a negative way, like in a bantery way. So for years I talked myself out of it. I was like, don't do it. It's not what you do. You know, just do it and be proud and move on. But I saw the world changing. I saw how if you didn't embrace social media, you're going to get left behind. And in my world, there are... I'm not going to say it's limited because it's not. You know, I've just spent the last weekend in a TV studio doing live streams, doing interviews on stage as a triple amputee. So options are not limited, but you've got to kind of raise yourself up there in your niche to stand out above other people that aren't doing social media and stuff. And I realised that a couple of years ago. So I just started doing bits and pieces, posting stuff, got some good feedback. Also, it creates opportunities when people see you out there doing things, you know, positive things. They reach out and they want to work with you and open doors for you. So I just started to see the positive side of it, and that positive side outweighed my internal dialogue of you shouldn't be doing this, smart. You know, people will judge you, and I was just like, right, stuff that. You know what I mean? I need to move on from that mindset and just embrace this now because, you know, I'm only 40 now. I don't think that's old at all. I've got 40 years left in me of work, and I need to just, you know, keep opening these doors and exploring these new opportunities and seeing what I can do. So, and social media gives me, you know, access to like 7 billion other people on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, and one post can make you go viral overnight, and then who knows? People are knocking on your door to make movies, documentaries, write books, and all this kind of stuff. So
I can see it. Yeah. So, what was the motivation to start posting and sharing? Was this before it became an amputee, or did you start to do it after?
No, it was after.
It was all
I don't
after.
think I had a Facebook account until 2006. No, maybe after I was injured, I think I started Facebook. But the motivation came. I started getting contacted by people because initially, because I was the first triple amputee, there was mainstream media interest.
Yeah.
So I kept getting put on the news and in the newspapers and stuff like this, and people would find me online and they would say, "Oh, you know, my dad's about to lose his leg. Can you help him with this and help him with that?" And it was a really nice feeling, especially after the help that I had got, to be able to help people. And then later on, they'd contact you and go, "Oh, because you did this, he's now doing this and doing a marathon," and whatever it was. And so I thought, actually, this is a way that you can push something good out into the world. And then more and more people started contacting me, and I would help where I could and give advice where I could, even if it meant signposting them to someone more qualified to help than me. But I just started to see the positive impact that you could have using social media. And a lot of this stuff I've never shared, man. I've had hundreds of people, DMs, emails, whatever it is, message me about something they've seen me and people that I work with do, and that's encouraged them to go on and do stuff. And so you just see the real positive side of social media, and then it makes you want to share more, because the more you share, the more you can help and support people, the more people that are in that place now that I was in when I was in hospital, that horrible place, can be inspired maybe and go out and do other stuff, and they could have the talk saying, you know, your life's over, and go, "Oh, what about this dude? He's swimming and doing jiu-jitsu and this kind of stuff." And, you know, just it's a way to help and support people and spread a positive message, you know. So I enjoy it, but it's a lot of work.
It is.
It is a lot of work. It's a full-time job in itself, just trying to come up with the ideas and push stuff out there and promote stuff out there and get it in front of the right people. And, you know, I just kind of, I'm at that point now where I sit back and I've got faith that it will reach the people it needs to reach. If, you know, I'm not that bothered about stats and figures and all that crap. Just put it out there, and eventually it'll do what it's designed to do, and it'll blow up.
What's some of the first stuff you remember sharing on social media?
It was probably resharing the mainstream media stuff.
Okay.
Do you know, because I wasn't comfortable at all doing any of this in front of cameras and stuff. But then as I did get more comfortable with it, I started to see a lot of people that were doing, this is going to sound really bad, just doing complete nonsense online, like pranks and all this stuff. And it was entertaining, but I'm like, this dude's got like 10 million people following him. And he's just like being a dumbass.
It's entertainment.
Yeah, and I was like, I feel I've got something here that can help people. So I'm going to do this too. And the irritating thing is now, like still, like my social media, I don't think will ever blow up to the levels that these entertainers do. But I have seen how even like years later, something you posted years ago will come on someone's radar that needs to see it at the right time, and then it's achieved the desired effect. You know what I mean? So I'll keep doing it. I'll keep growing it. Hopefully, you know where I'm at now. I think if someone knocked on my door and went, Mark, I'm a social media expert. I've got the whole setup, like studios, teams, cameras, podcasts, everything. You front it. I'll tell you what to do because that's what I'm good at, is doing what I'm told. And then we'll do all the back end stuff. We'll do all the fancy bits and pieces. You just turn up, you know, make this video, do this podcast, create this TV show, whatever it is, and we'll do the rest. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards now, and I'm making good connections that can make that happen, because the behind the scenes stuff I'm terrible at. And you just, you know, I've got 3 kids, a wife, and all this other stuff going on. I'd love to be able to just turn up, do a job, and then go.
Yeah.
While everyone else handles the techie stuff. And we're getting there. We are absolutely getting there. I have a lot of conversations now with people in that world. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. See what we can do. See how we can help.
So obviously you had the kickboxing and boxing before we became an amputee, and now jiu-jitsu is your form of martial arts. How did that come about?
So my friend Sam Sheriff. Sam was a physical training instructor in the Marines. He was the head of Royal Marines Unarmed Combat. When we met, he was a purple belt, and he had started this he started first of all Royal Marines BJJ, against all the odds. Yeah. He was told it was stupid and rubbish, and football and rugby were what military people were doing, and by the time he left, it was the fastest growing sport in the whole of the military, not just the Royal Marines. But we met in the sergeant's mess at Stonehouse Barracks around the corner. And he invited me to what he called the combat room. And he was using, as a physical training instructor, and he was also a rehabilitation specialist, he was using jiu-jitsu and his passion for fixing blokes that were broken physically to help rehabilitate them. So he took me down to the combat room. And when I was growing up, I tried jiu-jitsu, but Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't really know what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was. And he took me down, it was a squash court. Right, and it had mats on the floor and mats on the walls. No windows or anything, just a door in, door out, and that was it. It was horrible. And he explained to me what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. He said, it's a ground-based grappling system. I had taken my legs off, I was sat down, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm already halfway there because I'm on the ground. Because I thought I was going to be like trying to throw people and all this stuff.
Judo or something.
Exactly, right, because that's what Japanese Jiu-Jitsu involved, a lot of throw-ins, wrist locks, disarming knives and stuff. And then we started rolling around. And he was talking to me about arm bars. And you know what it's like when you go there, right? Like any other martial art I tried growing up, there was like a syllabus. It was like white belts here, yellow belts here, blue. Well, this was just like instantly like drinking from a fire hose. He's like, right, so I'm going to get you in my guard. And I'm like, what's that mean? And I'm going to do this and it's a triangle. I'm like, what's a triangle? Where's there? I don't see any triangles. And he's like, I'm going to do this arm bar. I'm like, we're going to the bar. What are you talking about? Just like completely overwhelmed with all this information. And he's rolling around me and my body wasn't used to it, and I remember feeling sick, like I was going to like physically throw up because I was upside down and inverted. But by the end of it, like I had that feeling of like going into either a martial arts fight or a firefight or whatever it was, of the adrenaline burst and the fight or flight, the intense breathing, the feeling that I'd just literally been fighting for my life. And I never thought I'd feel that way again. And after that first hour, I felt that way. And I was like, this is awesome. And what was even more awesome about it was legit. Like, I was legit. Obviously, he's not gone 100% right. He could have choked me unconscious in a heartbeat. But I was going 100%,
Yeah.
legit fighting for my life, scared shitless that this guy was going to break my only good arm or choke me unconscious. And I'm like, this is cool. I could learn this. And then over the weeks, we started playing around with how to adapt things. And Sam will tell you, like, for months, maybe even years, my mind was like, this doesn't work. Look, these guys are just letting me do this shit, and because they feel sorry for me. But then you train with other people as you progress. You're a blue belt, you're against a white belt, and the white belt's not going to let you do it, right? And you tap some dude out, and you're like, shit, maybe it does work.
Yeah.
Maybe what I'm doing is effective. And then you just start to get better, and you figure stuff out, and you adjust it. And now you just, I love it. I love just it's just like personal development. You're just constantly pushing yourself to think. And I said to Ricky, me and Ricky went up to Combat Fuel the other day, and we were rolling around. And I'm like, Ricky, I was in the shower this morning, and I was thinking about this. Basically, figured out how to do an Ezekiel choke with my trouser leg.
Okay.
And I was like, this is nuts. No one in the world can do this except for me. I'm the only one that can do that. And I was like, try and get out of it, Ricky. As a black belt, do what you would do to get out of this. And he was like, trying to get out of it, and he couldn't, because I was so locked in tight. I'm like, this is awesome.
Was that in the gi?
Yeah, it was, because I have to grab my pant leg and wrap it around his throat and drop down behind him. But I'm like, this stuff actually, really works, and I just love it. Just training, and a lot of it's fun, right?
I think it's a good metaphor for like life as well.
100%.
As a sport, because mate, there's days where you feel like on fire, things are working well, but a lot of the times it's like, this is a struggle and it's not going anywhere. But you keep turning up, and it's like, oh no, I'm getting better. But then there's always those constant hurdles, and that initial bit for even able-bodied people when you first start doing it, it's like, what the fuck is this? It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
You go against someone who knows way more about it than you, and you're thinking, oh yeah, it's just a bit of fighting, wrestling, whatever. But there's all these moves and different angles, and you're just like, boom.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's a turn up, chip away at it, chip away.
Yep.
It'll feel like take those steps back, but like turn up, and you find out these new things.
Do you know what I love as well? Is you get to that point where I think initially when you're going through that phase when you're feeling crap and for weeks and weeks you don't feel like you're progressing, it makes you feel bad. But then you get to a point where you enjoy that part because you understand it's part of the process, right? So I read a quote somewhere, or someone said to me at one point, like, think about when you fire an arrow, right? You can't fire an arrow forward until you pull it backwards. So those periods when you feel like you're not progressing, you're crap, in my mind, that's the arrow being pulled backwards, right? And that's where you spend a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You're like aiming up your shot and getting ready, and then you let go, and then the thing flies forward. So those periods when I'm not progressing, in my mind, I'm like, right, this is where the arrow's been drawn back. Keep showing up, like you said. Keep showing up. And then eventually, they're going to let go, and my arrow's going to fly, and I'm going to progress really quick, really fast. And then I'll come back again, and I'll be in that shit phase again. But because you understand it's part of the process, you don't feel down about it anymore. You actually almost look forward to it. You're like, oh, I've been progressing a bit too much. I'm looking forward to the bit where I feel shit, because you know you're getting better. It's a strange place to get to, but I think once you understand it all, everything just looks different. Yeah. The game changes in life as well. You know what I mean? When you're struggling to hit whatever it is, it might be a financial goal or a career goal, and you're constantly back. You just keep chipping away, and eventually, you fly.
It relates to health and fitness, relationships,
Everything.
Self-employment, stuff like that. We all just work in general. Like, there's going to be bits. I'm completely self-employed. It's an up and down roller coaster, and that's why not a lot of people make it past the first year in terms of business. But you just got to be like, I got to keep, I've got certain boxes I need to tick, for my service, for my marketing. As long as I tick those boxes, keep turning up and doing those things, don't need to do anything fancy, I can continue pushing forward with it. Yeah. But it's like, you've got to do that no matter the weather. Yeah. Could be things going great, but there's a storm coming out, got to keep ticking those boxes, doing those things. Yeah. That's what will help me continue with my business or continue in a relationship. No matter the struggles, it's like, these are things I've got to do for this shit to work. Yeah. So if I don't...
And the thing, if this is your career, right, and you're set on it, you're locked in, you're passionate about it, and that's 100% the way to go. But I think it's also quite important to say that if you're on the wrong path, this is the only time when, like, quitting is a good idea. If you're, like, constantly beaten down, like say a relationship, for example,
Yeah.
right? And it's just terrible, and you feel terrible, and you're not happy, and it's getting worse, and you're in this loop, and you're just like, why am I here? Like this, I'm 3-4 years of misery now, and I'm only like, if you're 30 years old, you got the rest of your life, and you're gonna be miserable. Like maybe it's time to stop pursuing this and find something different.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going down the wrong path, it's not really a great idea to just keep pursuing. But
have you got a moment in your life or in recent years where you can say that you had to step away because it was the wrong path?
Not that I can think of. You know, relationships is a good one, right?
Yeah.
My daughter is my eldest daughter is from a previous relationship. In my mind, that even I didn't think back then the way I think now, but looking back, I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was ridiculously hard a decision to make to walk away, especially from a 2-year-old. But you look to the long term and you think, I need to be in a place where I can be me and I'm happier and thriving, so I can be the dad that I need to be. And in this situation, I'm not being that person. I'm being not just, I was going to say average, I'm like way below where I know I should be and could be, because I'm just being, dragged back all the time. So sometimes you just got to be like, no, this is not the path that I should be on. Maybe I'll quit. But once you lock into what you're passionate about, what works, what you're committed to, and you'll know, right, in your heart, in your gut, in your head, you'll know that it's the right thing. That's when you got to be relentless and just keep pushing and pushing. That's why, talking about social media, all these things that I'm involved in, none of it moves as fast as I want it to move. But I know it's my future because I love it and I'm passionate about it and I see it helps people, and I'll just keep pushing. And then one day, hopefully soon, something will happen, right? And then I'll wake up one morning and I've got like 15 million Instagram followers. People are listening and they're like, oh, this guy...
Too many DMs at that point, mate.
No, but do you know what I mean?
And
that's the point when everyone goes, oh, mate, you're so lucky. Like, this dude's an overnight success. Like, 15 years, mate. At this point, 15 years of trying to create content, trying to put out valuable stuff, trying to help people. And then overnight, bosh, it happens. But, until that point, you just keep on grinding. It's
never luck anyway, is it? I used to have conversations with people. I think it was maybe like around the freedom of my lifestyle. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, it's actually quite lucky. I can go do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I remember one of my mates saying to me, well, it's not luck, Tom. Like, you've built your business, you've built your career, you've built your lifestyle. It's like, where is there luck? Maybe in the lottery, but is that luck? You put yourself in it to do it. There's not really much luck. You've done it.
I think with everything, there's always a tiny bit of luck, right, or grace, whatever you want to call it. But 99% of it is just hard work and hustle.
Yeah.
Like, you take you against someone who's employed, right? They haven't got to think about their pension, or if they're sick, or maybe maternity leave, or planning their holidays, or any of that stuff, right? They've got that mentally. And I've done both as well. I've been employed and self-employed. They've got that security, right, of I'm in a job now. If I'm sick, I'll still get paid. You've got to think about, where's my other income stream if I'm sick, or I've got to let my clients down and keep them. There's a whole load of shit that goes into it. And you could be working at 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you may not be in the gym training and so on, but you're making podcasts, or you're planning something,
24/7, 365.
You never stop, man. And a lot of this stuff, this isn't, I'm assuming, you're not getting paid for any of this, right? This is a long-term thing. You will eventually, or this will grow your business in other ways, but you've got to be dedicated enough and disciplined enough to put this effort in. And then people go, oh, you're so lucky. Not really. It's a tiny bit of that, but most of it's just hard work.
Just continues. I saw a thing Joe Rogan shared. He didn't get a single bit of return on the podcast, obviously the biggest podcast in the world. It took like 5 years to get any time of return on his podcast.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone's looking for that short-term gratification to try and just, instant win. Everyone wants to be that millionaire overnight, get all the followers, get the fame, whatever it is, retire super, super quick. But it's like not many people are just willing just to like put in that graft and keep the head low with zero return. And then eventually pop their head up to see where they're at. Yeah. It's just get your head down low, go for it. It's tough. It is a tough thing. Yeah. Just kind of continue going at it. Obviously, you're building your businesses and stuff like that. But it's like when you see nothing come back from it, you've got to like keep that to one side.
Yeah.
Like losing weight or something. I say to clients, look, the scales and all that will eventually happen. Hitting your calories, hitting your activity, hitting your sleep. It will happen, alright? Just ignore those measurements for a bit. Just keep doing those things. Then we could look at the scales maybe like 2 weeks and it will change.
Yeah.
You know, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is. Just keep doing those things. Keep ticking the boxes.
The instant gratification thing is dangerous, man. Like, I know we've all been through it when we're younger, right? But it's just, it's dangerous, man. Like people need to adopt that mindset more, the long-term mindset of where do I want to be in 10, 15, 20 years? What's that going to take? Okay, am I willing to put that effort in and not get that gratification? And if you love something, like if you love podcasting, it's not a massive effort, is it? It's fun, it's enjoyable. And then you're grinding away and working, and then eventually you sound Spotify for 150 million or whatever it is, and everyone tells you how lucky you are, and then people are online hating you. Oh, you're shit, you're a knob, you say stupid stuff. It's like, I don't care, I've got $150 million from working hard, so what? You know, it's I don't know, it's difficult. It's even more difficult now, I think. Like everyone's after that instant gratification. And
you should gotta be the one still doing it, mate. You gotta be the one come the finish line. You gotta be the one still doing it. The one doing it the longest.
I have a lot of these conversations with my kids. You know,
I was just about to ask. You know, as a father, like instilling this kind of mindset to your kids.
Yeah, like I've shied away from saying stuff like this in the past, but I don't really care anymore. Like things like participation trophies and that are just ridiculous. I get it, right? In certain situations, if you've got a child who's, you know, got special needs or whatever it is, I get that, right? But if you've got 10 healthy, able-bodied kids in a sports day race and they all get trophies, for me, what you're doing is you're robbing that child of the gift of resilience and that ability to bounce back and go, you know, oh, I came fourth, I didn't get a trophy. So, who cares? You're going to put that on in your something to be proud of, right? But you're going to put it in your room and it's going to gather dust. What you've gained is more valuable, right? Because you've come fourth and now you've got to work harder to come third or come second or come first. And I don't know, I think it's dangerous. You just create a mindset that I'm not a fan of, oh, if I just turn up, I'm going to get rewarded. You don't turn up to Royal Marines training and just go, you know what, mate? You did all right. Here's a green beret. Now we're going to go to war. Even though you're not fully qualified and you don't know what you're doing. Do you fancy it? No, because you'll die. You know what I mean? It's dangerous. There's a lot of stuff nowadays that I'm not a big fan of, that I don't really talk about. But what I am a fan of is setting goals, working hard, building resilience through failure. Failure I could talk about all day, man. I love it now. Like, it sucks. You talked about it just now in jits. Like, every time I get my ass kicked every time I'm training, right? I don't care. I used to. I couldn't care less now. I literally look for people to beat the shit out of me so I can figure out what I did wrong and adjust the next time. It's harder in competitions, right? Yes. Because you all want to win, but it's all just learning. That's why I compete against everybody, people. I don't care. I go in there and I'm like, okay, this dude's probably going to beat me, right? Because they got 4 limbs, they're stronger, but I'm going to learn so much from this. And then if I compete against somebody who is maybe a power athlete, I'm going to feel like I'm so much further ahead. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to just train hard, fight easy. You know, I don't love failing, but I love the lessons that you can take from failing if you have that right approach to it. And, you know, if you do learn from a failure, then it's not really a failure, is it? It's a lesson, because you've learned from it. So, yeah, I'm a big fan. My mind works a little bit different, I think, to a lot of people's. But it's got me where I am, so I try and instill it in my kids too. And just let them know. And I don't let them, you know, I treat my kids, I don't spoil them, but I treat them, right? But I'm not a fan of spoiling either. You know what I mean? They've got to earn their stuff, and they win so much about it, man. Like every night, dishwasher, dishes, every morning. I've got a routine on their doors when they get up in the morning. Their relaxers are set. Like every morning, 6:45, up. Open the blinds to get the sunlight in for the vitamin D, make your bed. That's your first task. Then it's like, rub your eyes, go downstairs, get some breakfast. Then another alarm goes off at like 7:30. That means you've got to start brushing your teeth and get your stuff together for school. And it's regimented. Now, it doesn't work every day at all. But the main thing is they're getting a routine in their head. They're not whacking the snooze button till like 8:15 and running up and panicking. when they go to school. Their understanding about routine and structure and discipline and that kind of stuff. I don't give them too hard a time for not being rigid with it, because the overall goal, like I said, is to teach them the things that I've learned in life, which lead to success. You know, routine, structure, discipline, hard work, learning from failure, and all those kind of things.
So when you think of failure, is there any big failures that you kind of spring to mind for yourself that's been a big lesson?
No. Oh,
lesson.
Because they're all lessons. Do you know what I mean? Like I said about the boxing earlier, right?
Yeah.
For years I did, because when I was much younger and didn't think the way I think now, it used to be like when I looked at my whole military record, it was like that one little black mark, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back and change that. But now I'm like, actually, like I said, it meant I didn't have to go on to do more boxing, which I didn't want to do. I learned something very, very valuable from it, which served me probably more here, going to rehab, than it would have done back then. You know, they're all lessons, and there's nothing really, when I think about it, that what I haven't learned from not achieving the goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do think people need to be able to step back from those hurdles and be like, right, what has that taught me? You know, how can I take this and spin it into, it doesn't always have to be a positive, but to aid the direction I'm going, use it as some kind of fuel, motivation, knowledge and stuff like that, because everyone just looks at it, oh, you know, fucking failed again, you know, quit, give up. It's like, again, how could we bottle that? How could we sell? You know, we've got the discipline, the resilience, the visual imagery, and then when I hit a hurdle, learn from that. You know, what's gonna flip that switch?
I guarantee if you pick up a book, right, or you watch a film based on someone's life, I don't think there's a single person on this planet, right, that's like a household name who's super successful, that just woke up one day and was like successful. None of them. They all failed multiple times, but they just had the resilience to get up and keep going and keep going and keep going, and then eventually they succeeded. You know, there's so many stories out there. You know, some of my favourites growing up were like Sylvester Stallone. You know, you heard that story probably, right? When he was going up and he was writing scripts and no one would take his script. And I think he like pawned all his wife's jewellery. He sold his dog.
Yeah.
He was homeless. And he eventually got someone to accept his script for Rocky 1. And then you would think most people would go, this is great. But he was like, okay, cool, but I need to play Rocky. And they're like, no, mate. You got like a weird paralysed face and you're not very good looking. He's like, right, give me my script then. At the lowest point of his life, just failing, getting knocked back. But he knew that he would succeed eventually. Yeah. And then he went on and I think after he sold Rocky 1, he ended up buying his dog back. Yeah. And all this kind. But you just look at
Rocky is now.
But you look at Sylvester Stallone now and you're like, oh, that you grew up with that guy being famous, and don't you just got it handed to him? He didn't. No, same as Arnie, same as all of them, man. They grew up and they got knocked on their asses constantly, but they just kept grinding, and then eventually, boom. You know, it takes time. It takes time, failure, and resilience.
So what are you working towards at the moment?
I'm writing an autobiography. I'm also writing a book based on 12 principles. Yes. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about now, about failure and setting goals and that kind of stuff. I've got a TV project in the works, 2 potential documentaries.
You say much about them? Were they like... what are the premises? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, so one of them hopefully will involve going out to Ukraine. They've got, I think, 50,000 amputees from the war. I've already done lots of online stuff and Skype and stuff, and I did it. I'm just trying to figure out sensibly if it's a possibility to go over there and basically do for them what the American guys did for me, and teach, because they are now where I was at and we were at, as in they don't, even the medical guys, they don't know what to do.
How many amputees did you say?
50,000. I know, it's insane.
That's a city.
Yeah, and they all need help and support, and if I can go out there, help them, create a documentary at the same time which then can go online to help God knows how many people that are on the internet, then that's a win. There's another one I'm looking at. I'm having a trike built at the minute.
No.
I haven't quite figured this out yet, the hook of it. But the initial idea was that I'd have this trike built and then race it from New York to LA and break a world record.
Okay.
But it's a pretty boring documentary of me just
racing. As in one of your pedal ones again?
No, I'm a Triumph 2 litre.
Oh shit! Okay, rocket through motorbike.
It's up in Peterborough now, getting built. but we all decided the team that was pretty boring. So it might be now a case of dropping in on like various different veterans things.
Like a road trip kind of thing.
Yeah, and going to jiu-jitsu schools with veterans. They've all got these different ways they rehabilitate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just telling those stories. So I could be out there for a couple of months just riding across telling these stories, which would be fun. That would be great. The TV show is exciting. It's based on a part of my story, just the part when I was in hospital. I can't say much about that, but if that comes off, I'll be involved in that, which would be great because I've done stuff like that before, and I love that world of TV and film. What else we got?
You're gonna be an actor?
I've done acting before.
Yeah.
You know The Witcher?
Yeah.
So
there's a TV series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen the episode yet, so I don't know if I'm in it. But on episode 1 of series 2, after they had the big battle, I was in a scene where I'm at the end in a bed in like a medieval hospital.
Are you
screaming?
Wait, I'll pull that up in a bit.
You know that the woman, the witch, the really hot one.
Yeah.
So she was like stood at the end of my bed for hours. So I was just like, this is great.
Season 2, you're in.
It should be season 2 at the end of series 1.
Yeah, because that's all out. Season 4's out this year.
Is it?
Yeah.
I watched season 1, but then never watched the rest. But it was episode 1, season 2. So it's like the aftermath of the battle in like this medieval hospital in a cave, I think it was. So there's another show on Amazon called The Peripheral. So it's about these group of people. Some of them they were veterans in America, and they put like these VR headsets on, and they can control avatars in this other world. So one of them, Connor, played by a guy called Eli Gore, a Canadian. In the show, he's a triple amputee. So they got me in as his movement consultant, because he's obviously got legs and an arm. They put blue socks on it and green screen it out. So I had to be on that show, teaching him how to get from a chair to a wheelchair to a bed, and teach him how to move around without the limbs. He doesn't use prosthetics until later on in the series. So I just sat there thinking, this is crazy. Like I never thought once I lost 3 limbs I'd actually be employed as a movement consultant with Amazon to teach someone. I didn't think they put that much effort in. I thought they would just go, just figure out how to move around. But they paid me to go down and train, and done a bunch of stuff in TV, and I love it. And then a bunch of other guys in my world, amputees, do battle casualty simulations.
Okay.
So they'll be like working with the military, the medical world, and like 2 a.m, all these people getting trained will get crashed out of their beds when they're asleep, and they don't get told what's going to happen. So you imagine turn up at 2 a.m, you just woke up and there's a guy covered in fake blood with no leg, trapped under like a turned up tank, and they're screaming going, "Help me!" And the medic thinks it's real, and apparently these lot, like, I've never done it, but they pass out and they throw up, and then the guy like me sits up and goes, "What are you doing?" And then they're like super confused, like, "How are you not in pain anymore?" And then they understand that it's an actual amputee playing. But there's a whole industry for this kind of stuff. Yeah, man, it's great. So many opportunities in this crazy diverse world of what you can do as a triple amputee. It's mental. So yeah, I enjoy it, and we'll see what else comes in the future. There's plenty of things planned, that's for sure. But I feel what you got to do, or what I do, is I throw a lot of darts at the dartboard, and a lot of them don't stick, but if 1 out of every 10 does,
that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part of showing up. But I saw, I think it was like a month or so ago, you put something out there about like, right, you're dedicating the next 10 years to work, business.
Yeah.
What kind of came into that mindset?
Well, ever since I was injured, I did a lot in the charity world. So I think I've raised close to £5 million now over 15 years for different charities in the military world. Obviously, the nature of it being as it is, I don't get paid. Sometimes it costs me money. So although I've been silently trying to build businesses in the background, I haven't really capitalised on them. So now what I'm doing, like, the t-shirt you're wearing.
Boom. Great t-shirts, get them.
Merchandise company now, No Limits. I've got some other bits and pieces that should be launching this year,
nice, business-wise.
But now I'm going to start earning money. And do you know what it is, right? We said it earlier. Over the years, I've had all these people contact me saying, like, my dad's getting his leg chopped off. You've really helped him with this, that, and the other. And I feel like in the physical world and in the mindset world, I've done quite a bit. and it's had a positive effect. But what I want to do is in like 10 years time, someone to sit there and maybe read my story or see it, and I'm worth like hundreds of millions of pounds, and they're like, that dude's got no legs and he's got one arm, 4 fingers and a thumb, and a smartphone, and he's built these businesses, he's made this much money, and he's done it all with a high school education because he's read the right books, everything we've talked about. He's fell on his ass, he's got back up, he's networked, he's busted his ass. You know, I travel at minimum 20,000 miles a year around the country. Like, I work 40, 50 hours a week as a triple amputee, but I try to do it smart now with my phone, networking, social media, internet. If someone can then get to, you know, see that and go, that inspires me to want to start a business and to become financially free and to get out of this miserable job that I'm in. That's where I feel my passion now is. And also I want hundreds of millions of pounds. So it's a win-win if I can, you know, make a shit ton of money, you know, sort my family out. Generational wealth is quite a goal of mine, is to create wealth in my family for hundreds of years after I'm gone.
Average is only 3 generations, so
yeah. But if you do it in the right way, if I create that,
you get like an idiot generation that blows it.
Yeah. But if you can, again, it all comes down to me teaching my kids the way to think, and them teaching their kids the way to think, and being smart about it. Then if I can do that for my family name, but also inspire other people to be like, damn, this dude can, like, he's got no excuses for nothing. He's doing fitness, walking, business, TV work, whatever it is. Then I want other people to be like, I want to do that too. You know, the world record, right? I genuinely want someone else to come out and break it. I don't give a shit about the record. Couldn't care less. I want someone else to see that and go, I'm going to destroy Mark's time. And then if they're in a bad place, get off their ass and just start hustling and swimming and then go break my world record. And then I'll shake their hand and go, good effort, mate. And then I'll go break it again. But no, that's the whole point of this shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's to inspire people to like drop the bullshit and excuses. And I don't mean in a way like, oh, look at me, look how clever I am. I mean in a way like, shit, that dude just like carries on grinding and figures stuff out. You know what I mean? That's what I want. That's what gets me excited. Is to see other people go like, yeah, let's go. You know what I mean?
So speaking of people then, obviously along your way you've been in loads of different environments, communities and stuff like that. How important have the people been around you along the journey, the environment?
That, mate, this is the biggest thing. This is a lot of stuff that doesn't get talked about. The spotlight gets shone on me or other people that are quote unquote successful, and rarely gets shone on the people behind the scenes. I'm very brutal now with my time and who I spend time with, because I have my goals and I want to be around people that think like I do, that act like I do, you know, and they're the ones that drag you up to their level. That's what I want to be around, people that drag me up to their level, not drag me down to their level, but they're crucial, man. No, and it all starts for me at home, with that solid foundation at home, with a wife who's on board, who supports what I do, not just supports it, encourages it. My wife's a gangster, mate. She just
gangster.
She is. She encourages everything that I do, but she sees the rewards of it. So when she's flicking through the travel catalogue and going, "Can we go here on holiday?" I'm like, "Yep, reward. Oof. You support me, I support you." Kids supporting it, everything I do. They, you know, I'm away a lot, you know, and my kids understand that, and they won't know this until years later, right? But you know, like my son now and my eldest daughter on social media. And because we're connected, every once in a while, I'll see their posts come up, right? And some of them are quite cool because I think they're a little bit too shy to talk to me about some of the stuff in their head. But it's like my son posted the other day, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about my dad works really hard. He retweeted something on TikTok, reposted something. My dad works really hard to provide us with this, that, and the other. And it was something someone else had written, but he'd shared it. And he won't ever say that to me because I don't know, maybe it's a bit awkward or what. But I won't ever tell him that I've seen it, but I saw it. And then when I saw it, I'm like, he gets it. You know what I mean? That's him. That's in my mind him supporting me. And so I just keep going out there and working hard. And you know, they're kids, right? The other day he came up and said, "Can you have a £160 pair of football boots?" I'm like, nah, not a chance, mate. Unless you go out and you do this, and this. And, you know, he knows I can go and buy them for him. He knows I can, but I won't. I refuse. I'm like, you're going to do this, and earn it. Then I'll buy it for you. And for a couple of years, mate, he wasn't happy. He was not happy. Even my littlest, my youngest daughter, my eldest daughter was out doing her own thing and earning her money. But they get it over time. They get it over time. And that post to me was kind of a little bit of... There's a couple posts like that. It was a little bit of confirmation to me that I'm on the right path with them and they're learning what I'm hoping that they're going to learn. So he's not going to get to 16 years old and be like this to the world. Gimme. I'm entitled. I want this. You owe it to me. He's going to go, no, this is what I want. This is what I've got to do to earn it. I'm going to go out and do it. You know, all three of them.
I definitely had that with my parents. And again, you're there when you're at that age. You don't really understand it. You just think, oh, I'm being bullied or something like that. They're forcing me to do these things I don't want to do. But looking back, it's like, yeah, glad I did that. Even if it was just, I think from like, age 10, 11, or maybe even younger, there was things like, if I wanted something, it's like, right, we'll fund X amount. You do these chores or sell some of your toys or something like that. You make up the other half of the money. Do these things and we'll do that for you. If you want this for your birthday, you want that for Christmas, you want this gift now, you want this new PlayStation or something like that. Yeah. All right, we'll give you X amount, but you gotta figure out the rest of that money. You gotta figure out that for 50 quid, that for 100 quid. How are you gonna do that? And I think I remember actually from 8 or 9, there was a point I had this big bucket where I'd sold toys to people in my in Larkhill. I used to go sell toys and stuff like that, and I was just understand that, okay, if I want some of these things, I can do it. If I want that video game, I can do it.
It's so important. Like you say, I don't think you really understand it until you're older, but it's so important that you just don't give all the time. You gotta teach them to hustle. Do you know what I mean? Because the world's a scary place, man, and it's hard work. You know that. You're self-employed. It's hard work. You gotta constantly be at it. And I think if you just give them everything all the time, like I said about robbing them of the gift of resilience, you're robbing them of that gift of figuring stuff out and working and being creative. I'm resourceful and trying to figure out, how do I get what it is that I want. There's no written way. I mean, it depends what it is, right? But you just got to develop that ability to figure stuff out and then have that resolve to go and do it.
Last bit then, what would be a message to someone who's going through a bit of a tough time right now? Doesn't matter what it is. They're trying to overcome something, get through something, whether it's physical or mental.
Well, the first thing is that none of this stuff lasts forever. It's all just phases and chapters, so everything comes full circle all the time, right? But in terms of practical advice, for me, the first thing is, no matter what it is, physical, mental, where you are, what you're going through, set goals. Because you've got to have something positive to aim for. This is what I find in rehab. Like, if I just sat there dwelling on all the negatives, I didn't set myself any goals, and my life would be very different right now. You just hit the nail on the head. You've got to have good people around you. You can't do all this stuff on your own. You've got to audit your life and be like, right, they're negative, they're toxic, they don't do anything good for me. As hard as it is, you either get rid of them or you limit the time you spend with them, and you quote unquote replace them with more positive people that have got the same mindset that are going to drag you up to their level. And then you just got to keep going. Like, we talked about this a lot, and just in pursuit of your goals with the right people around you, just keep chugging away 1% at a time, 1% at a time. Don't expect instant results. Don't go with a sense of entitlement. Don't get upset if you fail or you don't succeed the first time. Just keep going and keep going. I don't really think there are any other options than just to quit, give up on life, and just rot.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Man, thank you.
Pleasure.
Man. Appreciate
Easy.
it, man.
I'll put all Mark's stuff below. Sorted.